Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. How often do you get these questions? Is that your best price? Or how about a discount? It's a frustrating part of business life, especially when you've worked so hard to reach the pointy end of the sales process. So, how do you respond? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. James Tostevin of Marshall White is one of Australia's most successful real estate agents. He's been ranked the #1 agent in Australia on multiple occasions. His engaging personality and love of the job, matched with a highly disciplined work ethic, has helped him reach the top of his game. And we'll hear more about that too in a moment. James gets the fee discount question all the time, often because some competitors are cheaper. So how does he talk the client round without compromising on price? He's talking to Heather Dawson.
Well, normally if we're asked in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, Heather, which we often are asked, what's your fee? We definitely steer away from answering that initially. So what the person's trying to do is establish what's my property worth, what's it going to cost me. But we certainly want the opportunity to at least explain what we do differently, what our points of difference are compared to our competitors. And we don't try to elevate Marshall White by being critical of our competitors, but we make sure we highlight the things that we think are going to impact on their ultimate sale price. And therefore, whilst it's a factor, and we'll say we'll absolutely answer it, there's just a couple of other things we'd like to cover first. We defer the question, we come back towards the end of our presentation, and it's almost like an afterthought, but it's not an afterthought if you know what I mean, because we're always going to discuss it. They know we're going to discuss it. So when the discount question is raised, I think whilst a simple no, you've got to be careful how you handle a simple no, because you don't want the person to feel as if you've effectively rejected their advance where they might be comfortable dealing with me and with Marshall White. And that's the first thing we establish. Are they comfortable with Marshall White? Are they comfortable with me? If we put aside commission for one moment, are you happy for me to represent you with the sale of your home? If they say, absolutely, we want you to handle our sale, we really like Marshall White, then I go to work on trying to justify the fee to that person and why we are different. If someone says to me, oh, well, such and such was a bit cheaper, and I say, well, they always are. It's normal for them to be lower than us. And they look a bit surprised and say, well, there are reasons why that company or those companies are lower, because we do things differently, and we've run through a lot of those things today, and I might highlight those things again. So I certainly try and justify it, but some people, will certainly, I wouldn't say argue long and hard, but they try very hard to get some sort of reduction, if you like.
So what's the biggest argument, James, that you put forward for standing your ground on fees?
Definitely the negotiation skills, Heather, because even though agents will always talk about that, we provide case studies to justify the fees that we do actually ask for. What the client needs to develop a sense of, and we hope they're going to develop a sense of, is that even if we're hovering around a figure that's acceptable to a vendor client, we may elect as a strategy to pass in and try and negotiate a better outcome for our vendors. It doesn't make much difference to the commission. So if we negotiate on auction day and extract from the highest bidder another $30 or $40 or $50 or $60 or $100,000, and there's been negotiations where we've got substantially more than that, I think the client looks very closely at that and says, well, okay, if you didn't have to do that, but you chose to recommend that to that client, it clearly means something to you. I guess that last $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 in commission mightn't sound much, but if we can demonstrate to that client that it does mean something to us, future business opportunities will come from it, they'll certainly recommend us more strongly to friends, family and work colleagues. That's probably the most critical thing, to answer your question.
So what's the valuable message here, do you think, for other people in business, maybe not real estate, about managing this discounting question?
Yeah, I think all people want to see is that you've been able to identify that there are some things that you do differently to your competitors. And as I said earlier, it's not that we say, oh, this company doesn't do this and doesn't do that and doesn't do it, but we do all of these things. But we have a strategy, Heather, where we call it our points of difference. We're able to highlight things that we do which other agents don't do, like none. And if you can provide those points of difference, and people then say, okay, well, I can see there's a difference between what that company's offering and what the other companies are offering. And there'll be occasions, Heather, where someone will say, well, you can sell my property if you match the fee. And I'll say, well, I'm just a bit confused. You're asking me to work for the same rate as the company you don't want to represent you with the sale of your property. And they said, oh, we haven't thought of it that way. So they're asking me to match the fee, but they don't want to choose that company. They acknowledge and recognise that we do things differently. We're a superior choice in terms of an agent to sell their property. So we try to politely point that out as well. So I think that's a critical thing when it comes to discounting.
Now, James, you've been ranked number one real estate agent multiple times, and you've ranked in the top 3 for the past 5 years. So what's made you successful?
I think over 31 years, Heather, what I'm known for is my client contact over a very extended period. The longest period I've been in touch with the client is 29 years to secure an opportunity. And that's fairly foreign to a lot of people in that they feel to persist for many years, let alone 10, 15, 20 or more again, just seems an insurmountable task, So I think that's part of it. I absolutely love what I do. So it's not to turn up to work every day. It's not a job. I don't know if I'd even call it a career. I just really genuinely love what I do. So I think part of it's that as well. I think people can sense the enjoyment I get from what I do professionally. And I think if there is that comfort, I think you have to be a likeable person. It's not said arrogantly. It's just more, can people engage and relate to you? I have 6 children, which is a lot of children, obviously. But it's funny, I often have people say to me, you have a reason to work hard. And that's true. I always have had a reason to work hard because of the amount of children I've had. But it's amazing how people recognise that so often and they like that. And I think I've had a lot of life experiences too. And I think able to relate those life experiences and to be a normal person, easy to talk to, easy to engage with, that's part of my success as well.
Tell us more particularly about your work habits, because you're quite disciplined in your approach, aren't you?
Extremely disciplined, Heather. I think my approach is I'm a strong believer in what's called blocks of time. And I think for agents, and I think this definitely is transferable to a lot of industries, where a lot of real estate salespeople are in the office for half an hour. They're out for 20 minutes when they're just doing a small errand. They're in for an hour and 10 minutes. They're out for an hour and a half. They're back in for an hour and 20. They're back out for 2 hours. They're back in for an hour. And there's no system or structure to their day. So I'm very streamlined with how I structure my day. And typically, a significant part of Tuesday and a significant part of Wednesday is spent on the phone making what we call a prospecting or nurture calls just to maintain contact with clients. I'm a strong believer that time management will determine whether you're successful in a lot of industries or not. I'm known, as I said, in the industry for my client contact, and I make 200 calls a week. The average salesperson at Marshall White, the expectation of the younger agents is to make a minimum of 100. That doesn't mean they only make 100. There are some that make 120 or 130 or 150 and sometimes more. But that's an expectation, Heather. We anticipate and want our people to engage with a lot of people on a weekly basis because that will increase our prospects of doing business. So, that's something that's staggered me over the years. I think of how many cars I've bought in my life, and I think there's only one salesperson from the car industry that's ever made contact with me to see how I was enjoying the car. To me, it's such an easy thing to touch base once a year, and you think, well, gee, when I'm going to upgrade my car, I'm going to go back to that salesperson because they showed an interest in me. They cared about my experience post-purchase. They maintained their enthusiasm over a period of time to do business again, and I look very closely at that. So it doesn't matter if it's hydronic heating I'm putting in at my house, if it's a car, whether it's a major item, any description. If I trust that person and I feel they've made a genuine effort to win me over, whether it be me, whether it be my wife, Sim, I'm interested in that sort of thing. I take notice of that sort of thing. And I think there's so many industries where we could learn from what we do in a nurture type capacity where that would benefit that person enormously. Trades, I think of tradespeople and I think, tradesperson doesn't turn up to an appointment. And we say, oh, that's okay. When can you come next week? If we didn't turn up to an appointment, Heather, it'll be, forget it. You're not selling my house. We're gone. That's one appointment. Yet so many people, we're accepting of their excuses. And to me, there's so many opportunities out there for people. If they had really good follow-up, the amount of business opportunities would be frightening.
Well, James, after many years of experience in your industry, what are the biggest lessons you've learnt that you could share with other business people?
I think, Heather, having a mentor, I think that's been a really important part of my development over the years, to be guided, use someone else as a sounding board. It doesn't have to be someone within real estate. I think it's good if it is someone within our industry because they have an understanding. That's for real estate agents. But for people in business, I think someone to provide some guidance, advice. There's always going to be issues for all of us to come up. And there's going to be moments in time where we reach that fork in the road and think, okay, which way should I go and how should I handle this? And we encourage all of our young people. So Marshall White have a lot of people in that 20, 25, 30, 35 age bracket. And we try really hard to impress upon them the need to have someone like that. We call it a mentor or business coach. I think that's just a vital part of people's success. And I think going back to what I was saying before, the enjoyment factor, I'm sure you've met people, Heather, as I have, where you think that particular person doesn't seem to really enjoy what they do. When I get clients that say to me, you seem to love what you do. I had a fellow that said, you sold this house to me 12 years ago. Do you enjoy what you do professionally as much as you did 12 years ago? And I said, I enjoy what I do more now than I did 12 years ago. And he said, I can tell. And that was quite a genuine response. So obviously that's a critical part of people being, I think, successful. And just obviously if you have a spring in your step every day, you've got great energy. To be enthusiastic and to be passionate, they're all important. But I think the energy levels you carry with you every day, people notice that. They respond to that. I say to clients, it's insane how much I love what I do. And I think they can tell that I'm very genuine when I say that, because it is. I really do get a kick out of what I do professionally. It's great.
That was James Tostevin, Real Estate Director at Marshall White. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.